In a village cradled where the sky seemed to kiss the earth, traditions ran as deep as the towering baobab trees that swayed and murmured in the wind. These trees, with their gnarled branches and weathered bark, stood as silent keepers of the past, witnesses to countless seasons. Among the villagers lived a woman named Amina, whose presence was nothing short of mesmerizing. Her eyes, dark and reflective like still waters, held a quiet wisdom that drew people in, and her laughter rang out with such warmth that it could melt the sternest elder's frown into a reluctant smile. Yet for all her charm and beauty, Amina remained alone, unmarried in a place where such a state was uncommon. The weight of her solitude grew heavier with each passing day, pressing against her heart until she could bear it no longer. Desperate to find a husband and weary of her isolation, she decided to seek answers from the village's oracle, an aged woman named Nia, known for her ability to speak with the ancestors. Nia's hut sat on the edge of the village, a small, weathered structure that smelled of dried herbs and dusty scrolls. The air inside was thick with the scent of sage and something older, something timeless, as if the walls themselves held the whispers of those long gone. Amina stepped inside, her heart pounding with hope and uncertainty, and sat before the oracle. Nia's eyes, sharp despite her years, studied her for a moment before she spoke. "Child," she said, her voice low and steady, "your path is tied to a prophecy unlike any other. The man who fathers your child will rise to lead this village, and his time as ruler will bring a prosperity we've never seen." The words hung in the air, heavy with promise. Amina listened, her curiosity piqued, and her spirit lifted by the possibility. Emboldened by Nia's revelation, she crafted a daring plan. She would lie with every eligible man in the village, she decided. This way, she reasoned, she would not only find the husband destined for her, but also ensure the village gained the leader it deserved, a ruler who would fulfill the prophecy and secure a bright future for her people. Weeks slipped into months, and the village began to hum with talk. Amina's bold approach to finding her fated partner was unconventional, to say the least, and it sparked endless chatter. Around every fire, at every well, and during every gathering, her name floated, on the lips of the villagers, some with admiration, others with judgment, but all with curiosity. Her actions were like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples through the tight-knit community. Then one day, the whispers took on a new tone. Amina was expecting a child. She carried herself with a radiance that seemed to light the paths she walked, her belly growing round and firm, a living sign that the prophecy was unfolding. As her time to give birth drew near, the air in the village thickened with tension. Families with sons of marrying age began to stake their claims, each asserting that the unborn child belonged to their kin, that their son was the one foretold to lead. The stakes were high, for the child's father would not only win Amina, but also the chieftainship of the village. In the midst of this growing storm, Amina delivered a healthy baby boy. The village erupted in celebration. Drums beat, voices sang, and feet danced in the dust. But the joy was fleeting. Almost as soon as the cheers faded, a pressing question emerged. Who was the father of this boy born to rule? The elders gathered in quiet corners, their brows furrowed with concern. Wives exchanged hushed words over their chores, speculating about the truth. Warriors, restless and proud, sharpened their spears, each man eager to prove his claim. Theories sprouted like weeds after rain, and every eligible man demanded a way to confirm his place in the prophecy. The village teetered on the edge of chaos, its unity fraying as rivalries flared. A civil war loomed, a shadow over the once peaceful community, and only the clear identification of the child's father could pull it back from the brink. Yet through it all, Amina remained steady, her calm unshaken. She held her newborn son close, his tiny breaths a rhythm against her chest, and trusted that the prophecy would guide them. She believed it would not fail her, nor the people she called her own, and so she waited, serene and sure, for the truth that would shape their fate. A week passed since the birth, and Amina named her son Tariq, a name meaning he who knocks at the door. It felt fitting, for the child seemed to herald a new beginning for the village, one brimming with both promise and uncertainty. The Council of Elders, a revered group tasked with steering the community through its biggest choices, met beneath the oldest baobab tree. Its twisted branches drooped low, as if burdened by the weight of the decision they faced. Oji, the eldest of the council, stood to speak, his voice quivering like the last leaves clinging to a tree in the cool season. Our ancestors have always lit our path, he said. Whether in times of calm or conflict, we must seek their guidance to resolve this matter. His words carried the gravity of years, and the gathered elders nodded, their faces etched with worry. Just then, Nia, the oracle, stepped into the circle. Her eyes glowed with an intensity that felt almost beyond the natural world, and the air seemed to still around her. "I have spoken with the ancestors," she announced, her voice smooth and compelling, quieting even the distant hum of insects. "They have offered a way forward, a test to reveal not only the father of young Tariq, but also the leader destined for our people." Murmurs spread through the council, a ripple of surprise and unease. Even the elders, who had seen harvests come and go through many cycles, found this approach unprecedented. Nia continued, undeterred. "The test requires each man who might be the father to journey to the sacred mountain. At its peak rests a stone, not an ordinary one, but a moonstone, steeped in the wisdom of our ancestors. The man who returns with this stone will be proven as the true father and the ruler foretold in the prophecy." A collective breath caught in the throats of those listening. The sacred mountain was no simple place. It was a land of peril, home to fierce beasts that roamed its slopes, paths that twisted and dropped without warning, and above all, spiritual trials that tested the soul as much as the body. Even the strongest among them might falter under such challenges. Yet the Council of Elders saw no alternative. After a long, thoughtful silence, Oji spoke again. "It is decided," he said firmly. "Each man claiming the child will set out at sunrise 3 days from now. May the ancestors watch over us." As the meeting broke apart, the village square buzzed with a blend of feelings, excitement, dread, and hope weaving together like threads in a rich tapestry. Amina, holding Tariq tightly against her, felt a quiet assurance settle over her. The ancestors had set the stage, and now it was up to the men to show their worth. But even she couldn't guess the twists that lay ahead, for the journey to the sacred mountain would bring revelations that would reshape the village and its people in ways they had never dreamed. 3 days later, as dawn painted the sky in soft hues, a hush of expectation fell over the village. The sharp scent of burning sage wafted from homes as families offered prayers, seeking the ancestors' favor for the journey to come. 6 men stood in the village square, each representing a family that claimed Tariq as their own. Their faces were a mix of emotions. Eagerness shone in some eyes, fear flickered in others, and a quiet thrill pulsed beneath it all, almost touchable in the morning air. Amina stood nearby, cradling Tariq in her arms, her gaze moving from one man to the next. Her look carried no words, but it seemed to say, "May the truest heart prevail." With the sharp sound of a horn and the steady beat of drums, the quest began. Each man carried a satchel slung over his shoulder, filled with offerings to honor the spirits of the sacred mountain: kola nuts, palm wine, and small charms carved with ancient symbols. The path ahead was no easy one. It wound through rivers that bent and twisted like restless snakes, forests that seemed to whisper secrets in the rustling leaves, and caves where echoes carried the laughter and sighs of spirits long forgotten. The true test waited at the base of the sacred mountain. There, a stone altar rose from the earth, its surface etched with old runes telling tales of heroes and gods, of love won and trust broken. Beside it lay a pool of water, so clear it mirrored the men's deepest fears and wildest dreams as they approached. When they reached the altar, a voice rang out, deep and otherworldly, as if the mountain itself had found words. "Offer what you hold most dear," it said, "and you may pass." The command settled over them heavy with meaning. One by one, the men stepped forward. Some laid down gold glinting in the sunlight. Others placed treasures passed through, their families for generations, rings, carved wooden figures, woven cloths. But the altar remained still, the path to the summit sealed, as if their gifts meant nothing. Then came Django's turn. Django wasn't the wealthiest or the most powerful among them, but he was known for his thoughtfulness and humble ways. Instead of an object, he knelt before the altar and spoke a prayer, simple words asking for the village's peace, for Amina's strength, and for the well-being of the children yet to be born. As his voice faded, the altar glowed with a soft, warm light, and the way to the top opened, as if stirred by the purity of his intent. The other men, struck with awe and a touch of shame, followed Django as he led the way. Their steps felt lighter now, their purpose sharper, bound by a new understanding that true leadership wasn't about riches or might. It was about the wisdom that lived in the heart. The climb up the sacred mountain was unlike any they'd known. Each step felt like a bridge between the world they walked and something greater, where the strain of their bodies met the quiet clarity of their spirits. Their breaths came shorter as the air thinned, but their senses grew keen. Every rock they gripped, every gust of wind that brushed their skin, seemed alive with the knowledge of those who came before. At last, they reached the peak. The night sky stretched above, vast and close, its stars twinkling as if bearing witness to this moment that would mark the village's history. There, resting on a slab of stone, was the moonstone. It shimmered, faintly in the moonlight, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat tied to the mountain itself. Django stepped forward first, his hands trembling as he reached for the stone. His fingers brushed its cool surface, and the moonstone flared, its light swelling into a brilliant beam that shot upward, piercing the dark sky. Moments later, it fell back as a cascade of radiance, wrapping him in its glow. "Son of Kofi," a voice echoed, clear and celestial, "you have proven your worth. This child Tariq is yours, and you are destined to lead your people." The words overwhelmed Django, and he sank to his knees, his chest tight with emotion. The men who stood with him said nothing, their silence thick with humility and wonder. The envy and rivalry that had simmered among them melted away, dissolving like morning fog under the sun. As they made their way down the mountain, the village came into view, bathed in the gentle light of dawn. They felt different, changed not just by the truth they carried, but by the journey itself. It was as if they'd left behind layers of doubt and pride, stepping into a new skin woven from wisdom and modesty. When they reached the village, the entire community had gathered. The air thrummed with tension, faces lined with expectation and worry. Django stepped into the center, lifting the moonstone high so all could see its faint shimmer. "The ancestors have spoken," he declared, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. I am the father of Tariq, and it is my destiny to lead this village. A gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by a swell of cheers and joyful cries that shook the air. The elders inclined their heads, their belief in the ancestors' guidance reaffirmed. Amina, holding Tariq close, walked toward Django. Their eyes met, and in that shared glance, the tangle of hardships and questions seemed to unravel, leaving only a quiet, unspoken connection. Django took his son into his arms for the first time, feeling the small weight of the boy against his chest, and the village burst into celebration. Drums pounded, voices rose, and the dust swirled with dancing feet. But Amina knew this was only the beginning. They had sidestepped a crisis and perhaps opened a new page in their story. Yet the real work lay ahead, raising a child marked for greatness and steering the village toward the prosperity promised by the prophecy. Still, with the moonstone as their light and the ancestors' wisdom in their hearts, they felt ready to face whatever challenges waited together. Several moons passed since Django was named Tariq's father and the village's future leader. A sense of calm and plenty settled over the community. Huts stood stronger, laughter rang more often, and the fields seemed to yield a little more with each harvest. It was as if the prophecy's promise was already taking root, or so it seemed to those who watched the days unfold. One evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across the earth, Amina sat, nursing Tariq beneath the thatched roof of their family hut. The air was warm, the quiet broken only by the soft sounds of the village settling into night. Then from behind the thick trunk of the baobab tree that stood like a guardian near her home, she caught the murmur of voices. "You've done well, Django," came Nia's rough, unmistakable tone, low and conspiratorial. "The village suspects nothing, and the prophecy looks fulfilled." Django's reply was softer, tinged with a tremor of unease. "My conscience weighs on me, Nia. We've tricked the people who trust us, and I'm raising a boy who isn't truly mine." Nia's response was cool, almost dismissive. "But you'll be a just and caring leader. Isn't that what's best for everyone? I call it a kind deception." Amina's heart sank, as if a stone had dropped into the pit of her stomach. Betrayal, sly and silent, had slipped into the trust she'd built her life around. She looked down at Tariq, his small face peaceful as he fed, unaware of the storm brewing around him. A fierce resolve took hold of her. The villagers might have been fooled, but they deserved the truth, especially when it concerned the one who would lead them. And Tariq, her innocent son, deserved to know his real roots. But how could she unravel this lie without plunging the village back into the chaos it had narrowly escaped? She knew she had to move carefully, each step measured. The moonstone, the very object that had crowned Django as father and leader, now struck her as a riddle, a lock hiding a secret that only the true father could open. As the village slept, unaware of the tension coiling beneath its surface, Amina began to form a plan. She needed a test so certain, so undeniable, that it would name Tariq's real father beyond any doubt. But first, she had to confirm the moonstone's truth. If it had been part of the deception, its power might still hold the key, provided it was cleansed by a ritual known only to the most enlightened minds. Under the cover of night, when the stars were the only witnesses, Amina set out to find the one person who could help her, the hermit sage of the ebony forest. The journey was no small task. The forest lay beyond the village's borders, a dark sprawl of ancient trees where hidden dangers lurked, pits cloaked by leaves, creatures that hunted in the shadows, and a blackness so thick it seemed to swallow light. But a mother's love knows no fear, not when her child's future hangs in the balance. Amina pressed on, her steps steady despite the rustles and snaps around her, driven by the image of Tariq's trusting eyes. Deep within the forest, where the trees stretched so high they seemed to brush the sky, she found the sage's dwelling, a simple shelter of wood and vines lit by a single flickering flame. The hermit sage greeted her, his long beard flowing like a river of silver, his eyes deep with the weight of countless years. "I've been expecting you, Amina," he said, his voice calm and knowing. "The forest carries tales, and your trouble has reached even here." Steeling herself, Amina poured out her story, the birth of Tariq, the quest to the sacred mountain, and the whispered plot she'd overheard between Django and Nia. "I seek the truce, wise one," she finished, her voice firm despite the ache in her chest. "Can the moonstone still reveal Tariq's real father?" The sage stroked his beard, his gaze distant as he considered her words. Then he spoke. "The moonstone is an old tool of honesty. Its power can be twisted, but it cannot be fully corrupted. There's a ritual, lost to most, but preserved in my memory, that can strip away any falsehoods." A spark of hope flared in Amina's heart as she leaned closer, hanging on his every word. "On the night of the new moon," he continued, "take the moonstone to Whispering Lake. Bathe it in those sacred waters and follow the rite I'll teach you. It will shine only in the hands of the true Father." With gratitude swelling in her chest, Amina listened as he shared the detailed steps, each word etching itself into her mind. She thanked him, her voice thick with emotion, and began the trek back, her heart pounding with a mix of hope, fear, and restless energy. She reached the village just before dawn, slipping into her hut unnoticed. Her eyes gleamed with determination as she hid the moonstone beneath the floorboards, its faint pulse a secret only she knew. The new moon was 3 nights away, and she understood that what happened next would change her family and her village forever. Whether the stone revealed the truth or stayed silent, time seemed to tighten as the days passed, each moment heavy with the promise of answers or the risk of ruin. With the aid of a guard who believed in her cause, Amina quietly retrieved the moonstone from its guarded resting place, tucking it safely away in her home. It lay there, waiting, as if it sensed its role in the days ahead. When the new moon rose, dark and unseen in the sky, Tariq slept soundly, and Django was away at a council meeting. Amina seized her chance. She unearthed the moonstone and set off for Whispering Lake, a hidden pool said to hold cleansing power. Cloaked in shadow, her pulse racing with every step, she reached the water's edge and began the ritual. She dipped the stone into the lake, her voice soft as she recited the sage's ancient chants. As the final word left her lips, the moonstone glowed, a gentle white light that spread across the dark surface. A shiver of energy ran through her, as if the lake's spirits whispered their blessing. With the moonstone purified, Amina returned home, her mind a tangle of anticipation and dread. That night the village would gather for the Feast of Ancestors, a time of joy and unity. For her, though, it would be a turning point, a chance for vindication or a fall into disgrace. As the feast unfolded, with villagers singing and swaying to the beat of drums, Amina stepped forward, the moonstone in her hands. "The spirits have blessed this stone anew," she said, her voice clear and strong, "for a special purpose." The crowd, caught up in the night's energy and eager for a spectacle, pressed closer. "Let each man who might be Tariq's." "Father, hold it," she announced. "The true father will make it glow." One by one the men approached, their hands closing around the stone. But it remained dim, its light faint and unyielding. When Django's turn came, the air stilled. He gripped the moonstone, and it flickered briefly before fading again. Whispers turned to gasps, confusion rippling through the gathering. Then Naya's voice cut through the noise. "Wait," she cried, her eyes glinting with a strange mix of fear and eagerness. "The stone answers not just to touch, but to sight. Amina, look at it." Amina raised her eyes to meet Django's, then dropped them to the stone. It flared wildly for a moment, then went dark. The crowd froze, realization dawning. Django was not the father. Nia's sharp laughter shattered the silence. "See? Even the best plans bend before the spirit's will." The ritual's failure left the village reeling, a storm of disbelief, anger, and urgent questions swirling in its wake. The elders called a council meeting, the air thick with unease as they gathered under the night sky. Nia spoke first, her voice a blend of regret and resolve. "My friends, we've been tangled in a lie. The moonstone has shown Django isn't the father. But this is a moment to awaken, not to fracture." The council erupted, voices clashing in a tumult of blame and debate. At last, Elder Mbaka rose, his presence commanding quiet. "Enough!" he thundered, his wisdom cutting through the chaos. "The ancestors are displeased with our foolishness. We must find the truth and hold our unity." He turned to Amina. "You've uncovered this deceit. What do you suggest?" Her voice was steady as she replied, "I propose a new ritual, one no one can alter. Let every man swear an oath by the river of truth. The river will name the real father." The council nodded, setting the rite for dawn. That night, sleep eluded the village, their rest broken by murmurs of betrayal and the winds of change. As the first light broke, the villagers lined the banks of the river of truth, its waters said to carry the gods' blessing. One by one, the men stepped forward, dipping their hands in and swearing their oaths. When Django took his turn, his eyes locked with Amina's, a flicker of something, regret perhaps, passing between them. He spoke the words, and the water darkened around. His hand but held its color, a sign of honesty. The crowd waited, breathless. Then a cry rang out from the back. All eyes turned to Mazi, a quiet young man, trembling as the water around his hand turned a brilliant gold, the clear mark of truth. "Mazi, son of Oko," Mbaka declared, "you are Tariq's true father, as the river reveals." A gasp swept through the gathering. Mazi, a reclusive figure rarely seen in village affairs, stepped forward hesitantly. Amina met his gaze, seeing in it the integrity and kindness she'd sought but never found until now. This truth shook the village too, its roots, murmurs rising like a tide. Mazi approached Amina and Tariq, his eyes humble yet steady. Mbaka spoke again, silencing the crowd. "The river has decided. Mazi is the father and we must honor this verdict. As for those who misled us, they'll face the council's judgment." Mazi stood beside Amina and Tariq, and she felt a new chapter opening, one built on honesty, respect, and warmth, qualities she'd missed in the days of doubt. "As the true father," Mazi said, his voice earnest, "I'll do my best to fulfill this role." The villagers drifted away, their minds buzzing with relief, wonder, and lingering questions. The air crackled with the sense that nothing would be the same. That evening, the elders met to decide Django and Nia's fate. After heated discussion, they ruled. Django would lose his title and serve the village to make amends. Nia would be stripped of her role as oracle, a new seer chosen by the spirits. The next day, both faced the village, offering public apologies. Shame clung to them, but there was also a thread of tragedy, a reminder that even well-meant choices can unravel when they stray from truth. The prophecy that Tariq would lead began to bloom. The village prospered. Fields grew lush, disputes dwindled, and a new unity took hold. Even Django humbled, found a path to redemption through honest work, while Nia, relieved of her title, lived quietly, her wisdom no longer shadowed by deceit. From a community once shaken, a wiser, brighter dawn emerged. Challenges would come, but they were fortified by truth and togetherness. Amina, Mazi, and Tariq stood ready for a hopeful future, their hearts aligned with the enduring lesson. Truth, once uncovered, heals, unites, and paves the way for better days. Thank you for following this tale. The path to truth can be winding and steep, but it's a journey worth taking. Truth sets us free. If you enjoyed this story, please drop a like and subscribe for more tales like this.